21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
May I borrow your question actually from LinkedIn's About section? Which team will perform better? A team that can work brilliantly together or a team of brilliant assholes?
Definitely a team that can work brilliantly together. Yeah, I've worked with both kinds of teams in the past, or even teams that are mixed. And consistently, the best teams that I've ever worked on were actually not necessarily the most brilliant individual contributors on the team. It was when those teams were actually working together and firing on all cylinders together that we ended up having the best outcomes. It's not just about that raw intelligence or that raw problem-solving ability. It's about being able to work together towards a common goal and fill in each other's weaknesses and boost each other's strengths.
So how would you define asshole? So for example, from time to time, there are some occasions when I mention Gallup Q12 tests or engagement tests, terrible results all over the place. States are actually the best at the moment still. But how would you define assholes? So engagement, probably low engagement.
An asshole, in this context anyway, is somebody who does not work well with others. Somebody who is sort of abrasive to other people, does not respect other people's opinions, thinks that their opinion is the best, whether or not it's actually proved out by the evidence. These people who are brilliant assholes, some people refer to them as like the hero archetype as well, the kind of person who likes to just kind of come in and save the day on their own. And so these are the kinds of people who are like independently generally brilliant, right? They can definitely solve problems on their own, but they have a ton of problems when it comes to clear communication, communicating their priorities, understanding the team's priorities, aligning with the rest of the team. And so what I mean by asshole there is really just the kind of person who does not work well with others.
Why they still get the job? So they are capable of doing the job by themselves?
Yes. So generally speaking, I tend not to hire people who fall into that archetype. But people do get hired this way, and it's generally because these people are usually pretty good at the technical parts of the job, right? And so because they're so good at that side, they can usually convince a team that they can come in and be productive really, really quickly. And generally speaking, they actually usually are. They usually come in and they start kicking ass. But you start realizing that they're actually making more problems than they're fixing. A few weeks in, a few months in, and then you've got a problem to deal with. So, is there
a small asshole in all of us?
Yes, absolutely. I've been that asshole before, right? Sometimes we decide to stick to our guns because we're feeling defensive, or because sometimes we just feel like we're right. That can manifest in a bunch of different ways. But generally speaking, yeah, if you go that direction, you're basically hurting your team and hurting your chances in your career as well. So, like I said, I've done it myself. I think there's been a few times where I've been like, no, this is the way to go. I don't care what you guys think. This is how it's going to happen. I'm just going to do it myself. Get this done, right? And then you get it done and you go check the results, and maybe that particular thing actually worked. But then you look at all the second and third order effects of all those decisions I just made, and it actually made everybody else's life worse, right? So I try really, really hard to think about not just what am I going to achieve by doing this thing, but what are the actual second and third order effects of that? Meaning, what are the what are the side effects of everything that I'm working on, and how will it affect everybody else on my team? How will it affect my investors? How will it affect my customers? And really try to make decisions based on the whole picture there, not just that one problem I'm trying to solve.
Leaders, for some reasons, still try to have a few assholes in their system.
Yeah. So if you got somebody who is obviously making more like doing more damage to the team than they are outputting, then it's time to make that tough choice and let them go. Because the more you've got that sort of disruptive force on your team, the harder and harder it's going to be for your other top performers to do their job well. And interacting with this person all the time is going to just make it super, super not fun to be at work. And so all your top performers are going to look at that and they're going to be like, wow, management here actually just keeps this guy around, even though he's obviously bad for everybody here. So like management doesn't care about me anymore, right? That starts to become this sort of like narrative that happens on the teams. So you have to act fast as soon as you realize something like this is going on. You've got to act fast and cut that out of the team as fast as possible. Now, ideally, you can identify that kind of behavior early on, and you can start, at first just like letting them know that is not the kind of behavior that you want. And second, I'll start coaching them towards the behavior that you do want. Now, not everybody's going to be coachable in that sense, and that's where you have to start making those hard decisions. But ideally, you can identify this, early on. Just like all of us have little assholes inside of us, the people who are actually like fitting that asshole archetype, they've got really productive, good team members inside of them as well. Your job as a leader is to go find that person within everybody and nurture that person to become sort of the main way that they present themselves to the team. That can be different for everybody, right? Everybody's got different reasons for for acting the way that they do. And it's your job as a leader to go find out what that specific reason is for that specific employee and help them figure out how to navigate that. It's a lot of squishy psychological stuff, but it's that's the job.
Unfortunately, you have a very effective process systems that can help reduce friction in team workflows. If you can share a little bit more about that.
Definitely. So a few things on that front. One, everything that I think about in a product-based business, a little bit less in a service-based business, but is what I call the 3 Ps. So that is people, process, and product. So generally speaking, your end goal is to build a really great product for your customers. In order to do that, you've got to have the right people in place and the right processes in place to help get those people to build the right product for the customer, right? So it's the people who build the process, that builds the product, right? So the process itself is actually where I spend most of my time thinking about and iterating on. Because that is how you get teams to work well together. And your process is going to be very different depending on what you're building, right? Every product is the end result of some unique process. Now there are some like off-the-shelf processes like Scrum and Waterfall and all of that kind of thing. But even people who practice those, there's not one single team that has this exact same process as any other team in the world. And so generally speaking, I am focused very much on that process part because that is how I help my people understand what product to build and how to build it. So part of my process, as far as this goes, is not just about the sort of like factory of outputting a product here, right? Part of this is also building a company that builds the product. In order to do that, you've got to be able to like coach people in the right way. You've got to spend time with your people. You've got to hire the right people. You've got to let go of the wrong people. And so that's why I focus so much on that process. That process for me is not just about getting the work done, but it's also about nurturing the right things in the team. And so what I do for that is, without fail, I do with everybody that directly reports to me. I have a weekly, at least 30-minute one-on-one with all of my direct reports. And for my skip levels, I actually meet with them about once a month at this point, for also usually about a 45-minute meeting for those ones. This is my number one way to understand basically where everybody's head's at. So that skip level one is actually super important because it helps me understand what the day-to-day looks like for the team members down there. And then also helps me understand what my direct report, who is their manager, needs to do in order to improve their skills. So this is my sort of cadence of check-in with everybody. Obviously, I'm chatting with everybody every day too, but this is my sort of like one time to focus specifically on that one person and help them, shape their behaviors, shape their processes to have the output that we're looking for. So generally speaking, that can range from, with one employee, I might be talking to them about, getting a little bit more organized around their tasks, tracking time and things like that. Another one, it might be like, all right, let's talk a little bit more about your interpersonal communication skills, and kind of coach them in understanding how to communicate with each other. So it really depends on the individual that I'm talking to, what we're focusing on to improve there. So like I said, it's people, process, and product. You got to hire the right people, fire the wrong people, coach the right people towards the right process, and then that inevitably just sort of takes care of itself over there. There's a few different things here, but basically, have you read the book The Score Takes Care of Itself? Yeah, it's very, very similar to that thinking there. I'm focused much more on the people side so that they can focus on building the right thing.
What I like regarding your model is that you are covering the context as well. So the inclusive environment. It's not just the people, the team, their interaction, document flow, information flow, etc., but it's the context as well. What strategies can managers use to create an inclusive environment, as you call it, on their teams?
Definitely. So first things you got to do is you have to understand what the purpose of your team is, right? What is the actual reason for your team's existence? And that could be, at an entrepreneur level, that's like, why are you building this company, right? Why are you building this whole thing? But even from like a line manager perspective, like if you're just an engineering manager somewhere, you should still be looking at that and saying like, okay, why, like, what is the purpose of this team? Why are we here? And then everything flows from that, right? So you've got to then understand, okay, what context does my team need in order to make the right decisions? And that is, it's your job to go out and find that context. Notice I didn't say that it was your job to make the right decisions. I said that it was your team's job to make the right decisions. I view the manager's job as actually more of a context provider than anything else, that and a coach. So what they do is they say, here's our purpose, here's our goal, here's all the context that I can share from all the other parts of the company, from our customers, from our investors, from wherever. And I trust you, team members, who I have coached towards this, to come up with the right solutions for these problems that we're facing. And that is key, actually. What you want is the person closest to the problem to be the one to solve it. You don't want like the CEO making all of the choices for the entire company, right? So in order to do that, though, you've got to actually build a team that feels psychologically safe, right? And because if you've got a team who's not feeling safe, then what happens is everybody looks to you to make decisions, and it turns into this sort of like factory worker feel, right? Where you're just like, I'm going to make this decision, you're going to do this thing, and then it's just this loop that keeps happening. Whereas if you get that psychological safety in there, as soon as you say, I think we should do this, somebody else says, actually, I think we should do this other thing. And then you look at that and you're like, oh, wow, that was great. This is way better than the decision that I was going to make. And then that starts to sort of snowball. Other people on the team start seeing that, oh, wow, they actually had this awesome idea and they got to run with it. It was awesome. Let's keep going. And so everybody on the team starts to sort of perform that way. And then eventually that basically gets to the point where the team is sort of taking care of itself. It's figuring out like, okay, here's our next objective. Let's tackle that. And you start building this really awesome sort of coworker feel for it. And you end up, being able to sort of build those inclusive environments. The biggest key here, though, is sort of fostering that safety. And there's a few things you can do to do that. So one, top-down management tends to be kind of the enemy of this because, like I said, it kind of shuts off that higher level thinking for people. And so start feeling a little bit more like drones, and they stop talking to each other. They stop sort of being a team. So first thing you have to do is actually foster teamwork. You got to make sure that people are working together. Second is building trust. Not just trust with you, but trust with each other. And trust is difficult to build, especially for remote or distributed companies. More and more companies these days are becoming remote and distributed. And that is actually one of the bigger challenges because when you're in an office and you've got a team put together, you're sitting there, you're back to back every day, you smell each other, you've got all of these sort of like cues that are telling you like, we're in this together, right? And it's so much easier for you to build that sort of cohesive, trusty team that way. When you're remote, it's a lot easier to fall into, I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing. We're going to meet like once or twice a week to kind of put this whole thing together. I trust you to get your stuff done. Trust me to get my stuff done. But we're not really thinking about this as like we're getting our stuff done. So with remote, you have to be even more intentional. You've got to make sure that you are giving people space to talk about their social lives, to get to know each other as people, not just as faces on a screen. I think that is actually the biggest key is you're not necessarily looking for to build long lasting friendships on these teams, right? Like that's not the point of a company, but you are looking to build a highly trusting environment. And in order to do that, you have to see each other as people, not just as cogs in a machine.
So top-down management versus team trust. Is there anything else?
Trust
important?
building, and then the capacity, or rather the acceptance of failure, I think is key. In order for us to learn. In fact, if you take a step back and you just think, what is the point of a team, right? A team is the point of the team is to have some sort of an output that improves the business somehow. And so generally speaking, if you're looking at one of these teams, you want to make sure that your output is that you're learning from that output, right? And sometimes your output is like, hey, success. We just launched this new feature. It's doing great. Awesome. What can we learn from that? But at the same time, you might launch a new feature and it might, just like crash, right? It might not be what your customers want at all. It might fail. That's okay. That's actually a really awesome learning opportunity. What that means is you just eliminated one thing, one experiment that you could try to improve things. And oftentimes you can learn more from failure than you can from success. So one thing that I try to do with all of my teams is is really encourage people to try, even though they fail. And celebrate failures just as much as you're celebrating wins. We talked a little bit about what it takes to sort of coach and manage, an individual towards better teamwork abilities and away from those sort of asshole-ish tendencies. But when you're building a team, it's not just about each individual, on the team. It's about the team as a whole. And so part of building a really great team is being able to zoom out and see the forest for the trees. Doing that is actually really hard, especially if your only interaction is that sort of one-on-one that you're having with your team members. And when you're in these sort of larger team sets, you really do have to understand how all of this feedback that you're getting from your team members sort of combines together to show you sort of where the problem areas are on the team and what your team needs you to focus on. That can be really, really difficult, especially the higher up you get, right? The more removed you are from the actual individual contributors on the team, the harder and harder it is for you to understand what their work experience looks like. And this is why you actually start seeing teams run, like weekly micro engagement surveys, like team engagement surveys, or like quarterly employee engagement surveys and things like that. Now, generally speaking, that's a big review process. You've got to go through and do these crazy, things there. You answer like 50 or 60 multiple choice questions. That then takes weeks to analyze. And then after, you've run a few week process there to get this, you've got an okay idea of what your team is saying to you. Now, that analysis side is actually really tough if you are asking open-ended questions. If you're asking things like, how can we make working on this team better for you? Or what is the biggest benefit you get out of working on this team? If you ask those sort of open-ended questions, that gets really, really tough to manage at scale. And so that's actually one of the reasons we built Viable was to help teams pull in all of that data and then analyze it quickly so that they can take action on it and they can actually make their teams more inclusive. They can make their teams gel better together and have better output. We've been building this, this product up for the last 3 years. We support both the employee engagement use case as well as actually customer feedback if you need to improve your product. We've iterated on this. We failed a lot over the last 3 years. We've learned from those failures. I've been an asshole. Everybody on my team's been an asshole at least once. And we've worked together to really gel and build this thing together. And in doing so, we've been successful. We just hit that inflection point to where we're starting to really grow the business itself. And in order to do so, we've raised some money over the years, $9 million to date. Our latest one was a $5 million seed round from Streamline Ventures back in January, February of 2022. And we are on the path to Series A this year. If you're looking for better ways of understanding your customer or employee feedback, then go to askviable.com and mention that you heard it on this podcast. And I would be happy to walk you through a 30-minute demo of the product and dig in on your specific use cases to help you build the team and the product that you really want to build.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.